Thanks for joining us for this Sunstone Metals presentation. I'm Paul Armstrong from Reed Corporate. Sunstone has made two gold copper porphyry discoveries in Ecuador, one in the north and one in the south. And today it's published its first JORC resource, being for the Bramaderos project in the south of Ecuador. The resource stands at 2.7 million ounces of gold equivalent. It's important to note that this is based only on the Brama-Alba deposit within Bramaderos and does not include the known mineralisation at several other targets nearby. It's also important to note today that Sunstone's published an exploration target of a further 3.3 to 8.6 million ounces of gold equivalent. That's in addition to the JORC resource of 2.7 million ounces of gold equivalent. And the grades are comparable with those at many of the well-known porphyry projects around the world. But unlike many of its well-established peers, the mineralisation at Sunstone's projects starts from the surface, means it's easy, low-cost, open-pit mining. The availability of hydropower also means that the green copper, something we'll hear a lot more about in the future, is also going to be an option open to Sunstone. Managing Director Malcolm Norris will deliver a presentation on the resource and the rest of the project, and then he's happy to take some questions. So if you click on the Q&A tab and send your questions through, we'll endeavour to put as many of those as we can to Malcolm at the end of his presentation. Malcolm, over to you.
Thanks very much, Paul, and it's a pleasure to be here. So let me start. As Paul indicated, today we've announced an initial mineral resource for Bramaderos and an exploration target. So that'll be the focus of the presentation, but I'll give a brief update on some activities at El Palmar. I've recently returned from 2.5 weeks in Ecuador. I visited both projects. I've seen a lot of the activity that's been going on, and I'm actually very, very optimistic about what we've got ahead of us. So this serves as a very good foundation, and we've got lots of room to grow. So let me explain that to you. Standard disclaimer with some forward-looking statements. Okay, so very briefly, just a snapshot with Sunstone, where our market capitalisation is about $100 million. We've got a very stable shareholding, top 20, 36%. It's been that way for some time now. And we've got analyst coverage through Taylor Collison, Morgans, Mine Life and Far East Capital. Both Taylor Collison and Morgans have released desk notes today on our announcement. The cash and equity investments, a very healthy position, and as most of you are aware, we've got equity investments that are fully tradable in Nasdaq Stockholm listed Copperstone and Canadian Stock Exchange listed United Lithium. So what's the proposition? The investment opportunity here is very, very simple. The team at Sunstone has been involved in a number of discoveries over the years in the porphyry, copper, gold, epithermal space. A very good team. They know what they're doing. And late last year in Ecuador at El Palmar and also at Bramaderos, we delivered two significant discoveries. At El Palmar, that saw our share price double, and then soon after at Alba, that saw our share price almost double again. So that's the proposition. Be part of this journey, be exposed to discoveries, and we will endeavour to deliver very handsome share price increase returns. So the markets, global markets have been very weak. It's been a difficult several months, but you know, Sunstone has turned around and markets are improving. Today we're delivering a mineral resource estimate, and we're optimistic that we'll deliver additional discoveries from both Bramaderos in the south of Ecuador and El Palmar in the north of Ecuador. So before we go into the projects, just a brief comment here. We do have very strong community support, and I saw that firsthand last week when I was in Bramaderos. We're a significant business within this Western Loha area. We're involved in a range of different initiatives. Obviously, through the COVID pandemic, we're involved in vaccination programs. We're still involved in a range of vaccination programs for other issues. We're involved in environmental rehabilitation, local education, employment, and we take this very seriously. It's ingrained in our business, and it certainly helps when we want to advance this project significantly. Okay, so let's talk about Bramaderos. This is the focus of today's announcement. It's a project that's within a nearly 5,000 hectare concession, and we're located to the west of Loja City. So Loja City, capital of Loja province. It's an hour's flight from Quito, the Ecuador capital, down to the airport at Catamayo, which services Loja. And from there, you can drive on a bitumen road. It's the Pan-American Highway. You can drive for about an hour and 20 minutes out to our Bramaderos site. So extremely good location. There's also a power network in Ecuador. It's 88% hydro power, and that hydro power runs very close to the Bramaderos project. Our Espiritu core processing facility, in fact, has just been connected to that grid power. So we're no longer reliant on diesel generators. We're hooked into that grid power for Ecuador. So the photos you can see there, upper left, Bramaderos-Alba hill. And the road in the right-hand side of that photograph is the Pan-American Highway. An aerial view, as you can see, of the Espiritu core processing facility. Lower left is the Iron Horse, which is a machine we use to transport our gear around for drilling. And you can see in the background how dry and arid this part of Ecuador actually is for 9 months of the year. And then our geologists working on the drill core at the Espiritu core processing facility. Other important components to this, we're only 900 metres above sea level. Multiple targets within the concession, which I'll walk through today. So very good infrastructure. And all of this is important because as we deal with our initial mineral resource, mineralisation from surface, and we contemplate what development alternatives may be ahead of us, this very good infrastructure with mineralisation at surface makes it far easier to develop this than some other large porphyries that are being discovered at the moment that are actually quite deep. So this is the initial mineral resource estimate. Some very important components here, 156 million tonnes, 0.53 gold equivalent for 2.7 million ounces of gold equivalent. This is an initial mineral resource estimate. This is expected to grow, and I'll talk about our exploration target and other targets in a little while. This resource is pit constrained, so it's only mineralisation within a pit, and the mineralisation is from surface. As we've announced previously, we've got positive metallurgy with flotation and leach processes, and then we've recently begun investigating the potential for additional heap leach opportunities on low-grade material. So that's obviously aimed at, as we develop a pit, trying to process almost all of the material that is mined. And this resource is for Brama-Alba targets only. And I'll make that clear in a slide that shows our full concession and the opportunities. So 2.7 million ounces gold equivalent, nearly 2 million ounces of gold, nearly 200,000 tonnes of copper, and 6.5 million ounces of silver. So this is what it looks like. This is a photo that I took a week or so ago. So this is actually standing at a target called Melanal, looking back to the northeast. And it clearly shows the opportunity we have here. So the Alba Hill, we've only really drilled on the eastern half of that hill. We haven't yet drilled on the western side. The Brama lower hills, so again, mineralisation from surface at Brama. And then those hills in the background are some distance back from the Brama-Alba system. So we're dealing with a system that's about 1.2 kilometres long that's mineralised and drilled, but we would argue that it's about 1.6 kilometres by the time we look at other data sets and potential opportunities to expand laterally. As I keep saying, this is outcropping, this is mineralisation from surface. Very low strip ratio, we assume. Obviously, we are initially going to be mining a hill. And the higher grade domains, which I'll show, are close to surface. So there is the opportunity there to cherry pick those higher grade domains, which is useful, obviously, as you consider the front end of any development. So this is what it looks like in plan. These are the drill holes, 53 drill holes for 27,000 metres. Now that's actually not a lot of metres for drilling for an initial resource. By comparison, when Alkane released their resource for Boda about 12 months ago, they relied on 53,000 metres of diamond core and about 20,000 metres of RC drilling. So this is not a lot of metres. With more drilling, we will identify more of these higher grade zones, I'm confident, and we'll also be able to expand around the edges and down plunge of this initial mineral resource estimate. So this obviously the statement here is that this is not closed off. We've got lots of opportunity to continue to grow this, and we'll continue to do that with drilling. The background image is gold in soils, so you can see that we've got a number of anomalies off to the northeast, off to the west, that require more drilling, and see if we can bring those into a mineral resource estimate update at some point in the future. Okay, so these diagrams are in today's announcement. So on the right, you see a satellite image. The red shaded area is the pit that was used for this mineral resource estimate. So there's a number of things that have gone into this. So there's a pit constraint on this. There's also a mineralisation model that was built that is capturing material that is greater than 0.15 grams per tonne gold. And then there's a resource estimate that's captured within all of that. And so what it meant was if we had an isolated drill hole that saw material that was greater than the 0.3 grams per tonne gold equivalent cutoff, but was on its own, that wasn't captured within the mineral resource estimate. And that area and that material obviously moves sideways into our exploration target. And you can see from the cross sections there, section 1 and section 2 on the left, that the pit very nicely captures quite a bit of the material that is shown there above the cutoff grade. And if you look closely, if you zoom in on those cross sections that you can do on the announcement today, a number of the higher grade areas, so the red is greater than 0.5 grams, the pink is greater than 0.8 on those drill hole intersections, are closer to the surface and are higher grade domains that will be developed and expanded on, we hope, with additional drilling. And you can also see, obviously, a down plunge opportunity to convert some of this material into resource with additional drilling. Okay, so this slide has a bit more information on it about some of those higher grade domains. So overall, Brama-Alba on its own is a large porphyry system. So we're dealing with something that's roughly 1.5 kilometres long, variable width, averaging 250, 300 metres in width. The diagram in the centre of this slide is a cross-section through Alba that shows hole 34. Now 34 intersected 200 metres at 0.86 grams per tonne gold equivalent, close to surface. So obviously these high grade domains exist. If we then have a look at the two diagrams on the left, the upper one is the geological model, so that tells you the geometry that we're chasing with additional drilling. And then the lower left diagram, where you see red greater than 0.8 and pink greater than a gram gold equivalent, those pockets there that are the higher grade, some of them being closer to surface. So plenty of opportunity for us to do more drilling and see if we can define additional zones of those higher grade areas. And just for comparison, I've just listed a few on the right-hand side there, just to give you some context for the grades we're dealing with at Brama-Alba. Cadia East underground. Now that's an underground operation. Indicated resource 0.78 grams per tonne gold equivalent, using the same metrics as what we've used for our gold equivalent. Alpala, Cascabel, Sol Gold in northern Ecuador, a project that is well known amongst Australian investors. This is a deposit that the top of the deposit is basically at about 500 metres below surface. So the concept that Sol Gold have been promoting is a large block cave. Indicated inferred resources are 0.59 and 0.49 grams per tonne gold equivalent. Now there is a high-grade core within that deposit that's ranging up to about 2 grams of gold equivalent. But the broader indicated and inferred resources, 0.59 and 0.49 gold equivalent. Boddington in WA, obviously a deposit many Australian investors are familiar with. Measured and indicated resources grades of 0.7 grams per tonne gold equivalent. And then Boda, which I mentioned earlier. The resource that was announced for Boda, the inaugural resource, was running at 0.48 grams per tonne gold equivalent. And it also, the majority of that mineralisation is quite deep. So it gives you some context for what we've been presenting today for Brama-Alba. And the key issue is Brama-Alba mineralisation from surface, supported by extremely good infrastructure. So let's move on to the upside. So the initial exploration target. So this was a quite a rigorous process. We took a conservative view, and we included in this exploration target mineralisation from Brama-Alba, excluding the areas captured in the mineral resource. We included the target Melanal, and we included the target Limon. And there are multiple other targets that will be moved into an exploration target as we undertake more drilling. So what we're saying here is between 255 million tonnes and 360 million tonnes to deliver between 3.3 and 8.6 million ounces gold equivalent. Now, obviously, our goal is to convert all of this exploration target into a mineral resource with additional drilling. So what we're saying is that this is comprising 2 to 6.5 million ounces of gold. It's comprising up to 500,000 tonnes of copper. It's comprising up to 15 million ounces of silver. And this is, as I've said previously, in addition to the mineral resource estimate that's been published today. So our aim here at Sunstone is to grow the Bramaderos inventory to greater than 10 million ounces gold equivalent. And we'll do that with additional drilling, and we'll do that by drilling these other targets. To increase grade, we think we've got every opportunity to do that. We've got a number of targets that are suggesting that the grade can be increased. So we'll obviously be drilling those and report on those as we get results. So this slide on the left shows the Bramaderos concession. Solid black rectangle is the Alba Brama area where we've released the mineral resource estimate. Dashed black rectangles, 3 of them, Brama-Alba, Melanal and Limon, are the areas that comprise the exploration target. And the red dashed outlines are other targets, other porphyry systems that are mineralised from surface that we haven't yet included in the exploration target. So this is why I say we've taken a fairly conservative view in constructing this exploration target to date. Why are we optimistic? Well, Limon, as we've said previously, we've trenched a porphyry system, and that's got up to nearly 100 metres at 0.7 gold and 0.23 copper. We've also drilled a number of holes into a high sulfidation system where we're seeing up to 0.43 copper. That's with chalcocite through vuggy silica and clay alteration, typical high sulfidation epithermal, close to surface. And then we're seeing halos of porphyry mineralisation over wide intervals of 0.1 gold, 0.1 copper, and anomalous moly. So we're drilling at Limon at the moment, so we hope to have some results out in the first quarter of next year. that could well demonstrate that Le Mon's a pretty significant target. Brama-Alba we've talked about. Melanal, there's been one historic hole, and we've recently drilled a single hole on the northern end of Melanal. Certainly looks pretty good, and the historic Melanal hole intersected a broad interval nearly 400 metres above the cut-off grade of 0.3 grams per tonne gold equivalent. So the Melanal system, based on geophysics and surface geochemistry, is quite sizable, and we think it's all part of the same Brama-Alba system, and these things will all link up. Then we can talk about the others. So Plias, for example. Plias, the magnetic bodies that we've logged, that we've mapped, extend off to the southeast end of Brama and around towards Le Mon. Portillo, magnetic bodies extending off the south portion of Melanal. So again, every opportunity that Plias, Brama-Alba, Melanal and Portillo will link up and will be based on very similar geology across all those targets. Sandia, drilling at the moment, mineralized. We'll see what assay results come back from Sandia in the first quarter of next year. And then Yeso, we haven't yet drilled. We went out and had a look at that last week. There's some mineralization at surface, so we'll move that one towards drilling as well. So that's the Bramaderos story. Mineral resource estimate plus exploration target plus huge opportunity amongst the other targets that aren't yet drilled. Just very briefly on El Palmar. So obviously this is totally separate to the Bramaderos mineral resource and exploration target, but a quick update. I spent a few days here when I was in Ecuador. Again, very well located, 3-hour drive out of Quito, supported by good infrastructure, and importantly on a regional belt that includes Cascabel that we've talked about previously in this presentation. And what are we doing at the moment? We've got one rig there. We're drilling on the target T2. Once they finish this current hole, they're going to move down and start drilling at T5. We're preparing a drill pad at target T4, and we're preparing drill pads at the Tijuana epithermal target in the north, where we're seeing historical anomalous gold samples up to 6 grams per tonne. So we'll then move back into T1 and drill some more holes in the main area there. We've got a very good geological model being built of this area, so we're feeling confident that we can deliver some more outstanding results similar to those that we've delivered previously, such as 400 metres at about 0.6 to 0.7 gold equivalent, and within that 100 to 170 metres at a gram gold equivalent. So very bullish about El Palmar. We also hope to bring the Verde Chico project that's located out to the west through the early stages of exploration over the next few months as well. Okay, so what's ahead of us? 2023. We've got 2 rigs operating at Bramaderos. That'll continue. They'll be targeted at growing that initial mineral resource estimate. We'll be drilling to convert the exploration target into mineral resources. We'll be looking for additional discoveries. So we should start to see assay results from the current drilling come through in the first quarter of next year, hopefully as soon as January. And we'll be reporting those to the market. And then at El Palmar, the main objective there is to drill these other targets, porphyries and epithermals, to get some feel for the overall scale of the mineralization at El Palmar, and in that process deliver additional discoveries. So that's the update. There's more information there on Ecuador. This presentation will be posted onto our website and lodged with the ASX. And obviously now, very welcome to answer any questions that might come up. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Malcolm. Fantastic story with huge growth to come by the sounds of that. Just a reminder to viewers, if you'd like to ask a question, please click on the Q&A tab and send it through and we will put it to Malcolm. There are a couple of questions in, Malcolm. You mentioned that the resource was pit constrained, and somebody has asked, what does that mean? Perhaps you could give us a nuts and bolts explanation of that expression.
Yeah, okay. So what it means is the resource sits within a pit, and that pit is determined based on various factors for reasonable prospects for economic extraction. So, a number of different assumptions are made on metal prices, on the ability essentially to mine an ore body within a pit. So in our case, there was a pit constraint. There was a mineralisation model that was built. So that's a wireframe. So that was built looking at material that was greater than 0.15 grams per tonne gold. And then within those two constraints, if you like, there's a cut-off grade applied of greater than 0.3 grams per tonne gold equivalent. So the material that is captured within those three components delivers into the mineral resource estimate, except where there might be those three components where they're only identified in a single drill hole. And so if they're only identified in a single drill hole, it's hard to wrap a mineral resource estimate around it. So that material is captured then in the exploration target. So that's the concept. So this is material that is above that 0.3 grams per tonne gold equivalent cutoff and falls within a pit. So it's mineralisation from surface to the boundaries of that pit.
Right, thanks, Malcolm. Another question somebody has asked, can you please comment on your expected cash burn and capital adequacy?
Yeah, so we're sitting in a comfortable position with cash at the moment. Obviously, we had a higher expenditure rate when we had 4 rigs all focused on the mineral resource drilling. We've cut that back down now to 3 rigs. And with the drilling being much more focused on what we need to find to grow the resource, convert the exploration target into resource, and test a couple of extremely compelling targets at Bramaderos that we interpret to be able to deliver higher grade. So comfortably funded, and obviously our equity investments we can turn into cash straight away with trading on Nasdaq Stockholm, and turn that position in Copperstone into cash. So we're comfortably funded. In terms of burn rate going forward, it'll be lower than the last quarter that was reported, and lower than the current quarter that will get reported during January.
Right. A viewer has asked, will you be looking to upgrade the resource to the indicator category in the short term, or just focus on additional growth and expansion?
Yes, so the answer to that is the latter. We're absolutely focused on expansion and focused on further identification of those higher grade pods. At this point in time, I don't think it would add a huge amount of value to move up into, expand the indicated, move into measured. We want to demonstrate that this project has that greater than 10 million ounce gold equivalent type size, and we firmly believe that it does. And if we demonstrate that, then it opens up all sorts of opportunities for us to contemplate with development scenarios. The metallurgy is good, clean concentrate production. We're looking at leach opportunities. There's all sorts of opportunities. And one reason why we can do this is because of where it's located. The infrastructure in this part of Ecuador is very, very good. If you look around Ecuador for where you might want to develop a mine, this is the ideal location.
Now, Malcolm, there's a couple of questions relating to the share price, particularly this morning. Perhaps obviously asking, why do you think it's fallen? Can you give us any insights as to what you think about that?
Yeah, okay. I mean, maybe people were expecting something larger. Maybe people were expecting something with a higher grade. Maybe people had positioned themselves in the stock, saw the momentum moving down and jumped on that bandwagon. I mean, with with companies such as ours, the pendulum always swings far too far on the downside and occasionally swings a bit too far on the upside. Look, obviously at the start of trading today, I watched it. I was a little bit disappointed. We're, in my opinion, grossly undervalued. This is a phenomenal project, and there's upside to be delivered across many, many targets. We have El Palmar to add into that. We're going to be doing some metallurgy on El Palmar in the early part of 2023. So we'll be delivering, gold equivalent type numbers, and we'll give some people for the flavour of what might be happening there. There's opportunities at every turn, and they're clearly not included in the valuation of Sunstone at the moment. So hopefully they will be as people start to digest the story.
Right. Another viewer has asked, what is Ecuador like politically?
Yeah, so Ecuador, the president is centre-right. He's been in place for a couple of years, so he's got a couple of years left of his initial 4-year term. The country is a bit of a sort of beacon in amongst a number of other left-wing or left-moving environments that you see in Chile and Peru and Colombia and other countries. So look, politically, it's always interesting, like many South American countries, but you then step back and you look at politics around the world, and you look at political manoeuvring that happens in Australia, and I mean, it's the same the world over. What's important is that the mining industry operates on a time frame that far exceeds the 3 or 4 year terms of political parties and presidents. And Ecuador, for the last 10 years, has strongly supported mining. There's been 2 modern mines opened, Lundin Gold, Fruta del Norte underground gold mine, high grade, and Mirador, large open pit porphyry system. These have been opened. There's a number of other projects where investment protection agreements have been entered into. So, our time frame is much longer than the time frame of the current president, and mining is being supported. And we're seeing that at the local level as well. I mean, the local community at Bramaderos is extremely supportive of what we're doing. It means that they, look forward to the positive benefits that a responsible mining development can bring. So yeah, we watch the politics, we roll our eyes at times, we cheer at times, but we take a longer term view than political cycles.
Back to the project, Malcolm. When would you expect the next update to the resource estimate, and when would you be looking to release a resource for El Palmar?
Right, so an update for the resource estimate. Look, I'm not sure. That depends on drilling over the next 6 months. And estimation of resources are not an insignificant project in their own right. A lot of work goes into these. So we'll look at results, and at the appropriate time we'll put out an update. El Palmar, we would be in a position to be looking at a resource once we do our metallurgy and drill a few more holes on that main central area. But that will be a review process to see whether putting out a resource on that is valuable information for investors, because while we're advancing that area, we're also drilling these surrounding areas. So you can argue, why release a resource on that central area when you've got these other areas that could potentially be advanced and included in that. But we will be in a position to review both of those issues mid-year next year, and we'll look at it then.
You mentioned the drilling at Limon, and there's a couple of questions that come in. Can you elaborate on what's happening there?
Yeah, okay. So look, we've got one rig at Limon. At Limon, there's 2 targets. One is a porphyry opportunity, and one is a high sulfidation opportunity. So geologically, they're a little bit different, but they're related to one another. The first work we did And in fact, the first hole we drilled back in 2019 on Bramaderos was at Limon, hole LMDD001. And that was drilled underneath this trench that delivered 100 metres at 0.7 gold, 0.23 copper. And that hole skimmed the edge of something, and we didn't go back to follow up because we were not exactly sure how to interpret the geology. We've subsequently done some work. We've got a few other scenarios that we're testing. We've drilled one of those scenarios, and we've seen some material that's geologically similar to the trench material. So that's an opportunity that we're trying to chase, and I'm hoping that we'll see some assays for that in late January. The high sulfidation opportunity, we've got 4 pads ready to go on that. We'll move the rig over there in January at some point. That's a pretty interesting opportunity because these types of deposits can be significant in their own right. And we did see some higher grade copper close to surface, up to 0.4% copper. And that was running with some higher gold as well, obviously. So we'll get over there and drill that starting in January. So I think, investors can expect to see a line of results from Limon during January, February, March.
I think that's about all the questions, Malcolm. You seem to have addressed everything that's come into us. Thanks very much for your time today. It's obviously a huge project with a lot more to come. I think one of the key messages out of your presentation today is that you're drilling flat out. There's plenty of news flow. There's rigs north and south, targets everywhere, mineralisation outside the resource. So it's very much a growth story. And we look forward to being able to update people perhaps early in the year with those results from Limon and elsewhere around the existing resource. Thanks very much. And thanks very much,
Paul. And this presentation will be posted, and any questions, just get in touch.
Thanks everyone for joining us.
Thank you, Paul.